What's going on, guys? So in front of me, you were looking at something pretty cool. And when I say pretty cool, pun intended, because this thing is actually a portable air conditioner that's kind of built out of a cooler. Well, I say built, well, it's custom fabricated to specifically be a portable air conditioner. And there's a lot to say about this thing. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, first and foremost, this is not a sponsored video. I paid full retail price for this. This is the more premium version of their option. I also got it with their lithium-ion battery. And I think they say this thing's a 10 amp hour battery. Yeah, 10 amp hour battery charger along with a 12-volt plug as well. This is an IcyBreeze. What is an IcyBreeze? Well, an IcyBreeze is a kind of a custom molded cooler that has a heat exchanger built into it, basically a coil to where when you put ice water in here along with ice, let me open this thing up, you can see that hose inside there. It draws the water in, runs it through a coil, and then there is a motor inside there, a blower that pulls the air through and past that coil and then blows it out on you. Very similar to a residential air conditioner. Because that's what they do, right? They put coolant into a coil and then you blow air past that coil, and that's how you have your conditioned air, in very, very simplified terms. That said, this thing's pretty cool. Like I said, pun intended. And again, this is not a sponsored item. This is not something that was provided to me. I can actually go back and see exactly how much I paid for this thing because it was not inexpensive. It actually feels like it's a lot more expensive than it should be. Now, this is the IcyBreeze Platinum. On top of it being $339.99, which is what I paid, I added the 10 amp hour battery, which is right there, and that battery was an additional $100, as well as, I think it came with the cord. It came with the cord and the charger already. So this is essentially what you get in the box. It's built very well. I mean, it looks like it was all custom designed. Nothing here looks like it was, you know, fabricated as an afterthought. The cooler itself, to me, feels kind of cheap. I was almost expecting, you know, a Yeti style cooler, something that felt a little bit more substantial. This feels really lightweight. I guess that's going to come in really handy when it comes to moving it around. But as far as, you know, storing ice inside of here to actually use for the cooling system or just to cool your drinks down, again, it feels like it's a relatively cheap cooler. The cooler itself. I'm not talking about the rest of the components. So because of that, I feel like it's a little bit more expensive than it should be. Now, I don't know how much the manufacturing cost of this is, and they're a relatively small outfit, which means that, you know, they don't sell millions of these things. So, of course, production costs are probably a little higher than if this were made by Coleman or Yeti or some other major company. That said, though, it's quality. I'm not gonna lie, it feels like a quality product. It just doesn't feel like it's a super premium cooler itself. You got your little plastic handle here, you got your drain spout over here, got a wheel to pull it around with. Again, it's pretty nice. And then you have your little vent here that you can rotate and open up. This, you can point air on you and get air directly on you. And then you plug it in here if you want to use the little vent here at the end. Has some cup holders on top of it, battery spot, as well as all of your controls right here. So again, you know, it's a very purpose-built piece of equipment. It wasn't an afterthought. You know, a lot of people take Coleman coolers and they'll take a Walmart little fan and they'll cut a hole in the top, put it on top, fill it full of ice, and just like they say, you're essentially just making a swamp cooler, right? You're just blowing cold air on a bunch of wet ice and then blowing it on you, and you're really blowing a ton of humidity towards you. That's the thing. It's wet air. If you took like a humidity meter and put it at the end, you would feel on those types of coolers, those homemade coolers, that it's blowing like 90% humidity on you. With something like this, because it's using a heat exchanger and because it's actually going through a coil, what I don't know is where that coil drains. I'm assuming that the condensation drains off of this radiator right here back in. That's just my assumption, just based off of gravity. And the majority of the air that comes out of here is drier than it would be if this were a swamp cooler. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be testing it out. I'm going to be testing it out in this super, super hot, kind of hot, humid South Texas moist coastal air, because right now it's probably 85–90% humidity here on the coast, and it's over 100 degrees. And in the daytime, it's well over 100 degrees, usually 102, 103 degrees actual temperature, and 120, 125 degree actual feel-like temperature because of the humidity. But it's going to be interesting to see what the humidity is actually like coming out of here in a very, very wet climate environment. So again, my goal is to use this like I think most people practically could. So the next step is to head over to a gas station like I think most people would, pick up a couple bags of ice, throw it in here, fill it up with some water, and test it like that. And right now it's super, super early in the morning, so we'll do this a little bit later, but we're going to test this thing out in all sorts of different environments, and I'm going to compare it to some other equipment that I have that do kind of similar things, right, in a little bit different way. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing holds up here in South Texas in this extreme heat, because I'm really, really hoping that this thing is going to be as good as they claim it's going to be. And I think the only way to truly find out is to test this in extreme heat, check out the humidity that comes out of it, check out how cold that air actually is, and again, you know, put actual bags of ice in here versus big blocks of ice. Their recommendation, if you want the best performance out of this thing, is to freeze like some big jugs of ice or blocks of ice and drop them in there, because they thaw slower versus, you know, individual ice chips or ice cubes. But the challenge is most people aren't going to have their freezer space to do that every single time they want to use this. I think most people practically are going to go to the gas station, pick up a couple 10 or 20 pound bags of ice, just fill this thing completely full of ice, maybe throw some drinks and stuff inside of here as well, fill it with water, because that's what circulates through the pump. Just use it until, you know, the ice inside of it's pretty much depleted and melted. With the battery, I think it's supposed to run like 4 to 6 hours, you know, just off of this battery. It's interesting, they say this is a 10 amp hour battery. When you compare its physical size and look, it looks a lot like a DeWalt or a Makita battery, and it looks very similar to like their 4 amp hour battery. So this may be an actual 10 amp hour battery, not 100% sure, but again, physical size of it, physical weight, it feels like the 4 or maybe even a 5 amp hour battery from DeWalt or Makita. But pretty compact, has a nice charger with it. Very, very well made. I mean, all of this stuff looks professionally made. It looks very, very durable, and you know, looks like it'll hold up. But we're definitely going to test this thing out. Anyways, guys, wanted to introduce this to you. Whenever the sun comes up a little bit more, we're going to head out and we're going to do a bunch of tests on this thing. I'll put a link in the description of this video if this is something you may be interested in. I can't give my recommendation on it until we've tested it, though. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.